So would I assume you had a drink bottle in your bag today?
But I guess like being expelled feels like it's more like a serious kind of that. No, that is a true argument. Yeah.
You're bringing your moral. You're sort of applying a moral judgment that this person's bad, and therefore I'm assuming he would continue to do that.
Yeah.
So, which is, you don't want to do.
Yeah, okay, no, I get that. Just thank you. So
But,
would that be like a counter argument?
no, I wouldn't call that a counter argument. It's just that, and also it's a subjective state of mind. There's nothing on the facts to suggest
that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not so much a counter argument as it is the. He would need to know that if he's carrying, that at that point he was carrying a knife and that he might be prepared to use it. That's something that could well happen. There's nothing on the facts other than the fact that he knew he had a knife a year ago or whatever it was to suggest that. So, it's a pretty big jump that you're making.
Okay, that's true. I also was wondering because it's not like counter argument. So would you ever suggest like being like in the instance where he's not charged by section 1881, I would charge it under this? Do you lay it out like that?
Well, if the person's charged with 188 and it doesn't say 188.1 or 188.2, then you would start with depending on the facts, I would ordinarily start with 188.1, and if you can't prove the means one for that, then I would go and move the funds to take.
So do you incorporate like counter arguments where it's like in the case that this specifies?
That's not so much a counter argument. A counter argument is where you might be going, there's the potential to argue this here, but the law might say there's also this element which might be called a special scenario. I'm curious as to how you're concerned about
just like with pub, I feel like they look at that just to see like your definition. But I'm not sure if that adds applicable to criminal.
So they check that to see
to see like the other opinions and see if you look at the overall picture. But I guess it's not as applicable for criminal. I'm just wondering.
Well, if you think about the sorts of decisions that are having to be made, all these factual decisions are having to be made by the jury. So a jury's having to weigh up the evidence and do I believe this person? What does this person say? What do we know about what that person knew? So it's not so much a counter argument as it is just weighing up the evidence and thinking, counter argument, something like that is where you're looking at as opposed to
I just have a really good question for aggravated assault. Part of aggravated assault sorry, with weapon. It's like that prima facie thing with the I was just confused with because I know we had two cases. We had the 10-1 and the Marine police, and I think I was confused on. It was a objective standard originally, but is it still an objective standard? It was like anything in the circumstances that shows an intention to use a weapon.
I think now that Marine Police makes it clear that you have to show an intention to use a weapon.
Okay, so in that instance, is it now?
So which were the two cases that Kate taught you?
Terwan, Nui, and Kate, and Marine Police.
Marine Police, what's the citation for that?
In Z report 2133.
So it's not just and you have to know that you use it as a weapon, but it wasn't even your intention to do so.
But if you use it as a weapon, how can you not have like say like you used to grab me, okay?
Or what if you had something in your hand and then you, I don't know, scenario, you're walking somewhere and you turn out and hit someone and turn out and hit someone or something, maybe like, say for example, I've got a big bangle, right? If I've got that and I hit someone with my bangle, it's pretty heavy. Did I intend to use it as a weapon? I've used it as a weapon, did I intend to? Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
We have, sorry, I thought we had been given a great level of fact pattern for lots of demonstration. Does anyone want the fact pattern on paper? I've only got a couple, sorry, but sorry, I thought they had given me a big fact pattern. Maybe I put them on the way out. Is there anyone else? I might have another one. Oh, that's okay. Anyone else? Floating around. So today, we're looking at section 66(1) and 2 in the context of a burglary, a theft, and also some interpersonal violence. For those of you who haven't read the fact pattern, actually, can I just see who's read it? So I've got a sort of an idea. Not many, a few of you. Okay. If you've read it, has anyone actually started trying to answer it? Okay, great. So happy to start talking through if you've got questions. For those of you that have read it and haven't started answering it or not read it at all, please read it now. What I want you to do as you go through it, one, obviously you've got to get the idea of the story. To make your life a little easier, I have once again given you A, B and C, and then I've given you Patrick as a P, which should become clear to you as you read it why he is starting with P. I want you to think, again, like I said last week, about where do you start? What are you going to start with? Are you going to start with one of the parties? Are you going to start with an offence? How are you going to start when you start writing your answer to this? If you decide to start with an offence, which one are you going to start with? Okay, having that already sort of in your head as to where you're going to start will save you some time. Off you go. I'll give you sort of 5 to 6 minutes to read it and give some thought to that, and then we will have a discussion about where you should start and why, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about it, and then I'll leave you to get on with it. Okay? While you do that, I might just go and get some water for myself. Did you have a question for me? I haven't got it today, but it could be outside of the week on Thursday, but I will have some next week. all had a chance to read the fact pattern, where are you thinking you might start in answering this question? Are you going to start with, have you got your hand up, or are you just...
I just want you to finish.
Okay, that's right, you can interrupt me.
I was just saying that maybe we should start with Lois because she has a really easy difficult defense since it's very around the way.
Okay, so you think it's quite a discreet thing, so you would start with her? Yeah, you could do that, yeah. It really depends on your own personal, how you like to do things. I prefer to do the hard bit first, right? Is that the hard bit? No, okay. So, where is the most difficult bit here? Because, well, again, it's your personal preference, but my thing is I would prefer to have time not feel under pressure when I'm doing the bit that requires me to do the most analysis, which is the most difficult. Okay, so you could do that first. It is discreet, get it out of the way, but I think you could do that quite quickly, and if I was under pressure, I would rather be doing that at the end, right? So that would be my thinking around it, but again, we all work differently. If you weren't going to start with Lois, where would you start? Where's the most difficult thing? Well, actually, the other question is, do you start with an individual? If you're not going to start with Lois, are you going to start with an individual, or are you going to start with an offence?
Probably start with an offence and work chronologically. So the first offence would be step, vodka, like when that constitutes step.
Okay, so you'd start with theft and deal with that and then work your way on from there. Yep. You could do that, and for the same reasons that Sid said about Lois, I would deal with theft at the end because I think it's an easier one. It wouldn't matter if you started with theft, again, it's quite discreet. Right? Again, in my thinking, I would be preferring to do that at the end because I could do that quite quickly. But if you started with theft, it really wouldn't matter. Right? My thinking would be I would start with burglary because from burglary, I then flow on to the GBH. That is going to be the most difficult thing. That is going to require the most analysis from me. I don't want to be doing that quickly or rushing. Okay, so I know that I can do theft quickly. I know I can do assault with a weapon quickly. I can do that when I'm under pressure. But that's just my thinking, if you want to do it differently. But what I want you to think about is how you are going to tackle it for yourselves. Right. We will start with burglary and GBH because we've run out of time. We want to make sure that we've at least covered that today. So if we're starting with burglary, where are you going to start when you look at that? Are you just going to start with thinking about who your principal is, or what is the first thing you're going to identify?
Is it a building and are they entering without permission?
Yeah, okay, so you want to start with your elements of the actual offence itself. Alright, so we're starting at section, what is it, 231? Okay, actus reus, entry into a building. Now, it's not a ship, it's not anything other than a building. I don't need you to be spending your time writing out the whole offence, right? It just, actus reus is the entry into a building without authorisation. That's all you need to tell me. If you start typing out the offence itself, all you're doing is showing me that you're a good typist. How we can pull out what is particularly relevant, and you can tell me what the actus reus is. Okay? What's your mens rea? With an intention to commit an imprisonable offence. Do you have to actually commit that offence? No? I can't hear a nod when I've got my back to you. Okay, just an intention to commit an imprisonable offence. Right. Where do you go from here? What's your next step? Is there only one person charged with burglary, Lockie?
No, there's 4 people, so probably separate them and do the most difficult first. So Patrick is obvious, Chris is pretty obvious, but then Adam is also.
Okay, so when you're looking at party liability, what is the first thing you need to establish. Yeah, establish a principle. So at this point, this is why I'm asking these questions. Because you're now having to think about section 66, because everyone is charged with burglary with section 66, that's where I would then go, as opposed to going, okay, is Patrick guilty of burglary? Right, I would then charge him thinking about section 66 and go, and you can do it one of two ways. You can talk about section 66, 1 and 2 both require as a first element that you have a principal offender, or you can just start with section 66, 1, talk about your principal offender, and then repeat it again. Don't care either way. The main thing is that you understand that you've got to have a principal offender. Okay? So then you would establish who your principal is and whether you've got more than one. So have we got entry into a building without authorisation with an intention to commit an imprisonable offence? Yeah, okay. Who's done that? Who's the most obvious? Patrick. Okay, Patrick with a P, here's your principal. That's why I made you with Patrick with a P, just to make your life easier to keep track of who the people are. Alright? Now, so he's the one who's broken the window, right, and unlocked the door and then gone in. Who's followed him? Adam. Okay. Has Adam committed burglary, or are you going to be looking at him as a secondary party? Sid?
He didn't have intention to steal, I don't think.
Okay, have a look at your facts. Now, just while we're saying that, what I have done, I said I would do this for you, and I've put it on your so I've put a table under your modules for you under the party liability modules. I've actually incorporated section 66 in there as well. Some of you will find this completely and utterly useless. For those of you that want to use a table so you can keep track of people, then this might be a good starting point for you, where you just start writing down who the person is, what their involvement was, what am I looking at them for, principal, secret party, etc., etc. Okay? Sometimes it's hard to keep track. If it was me, I would like to have that beside me. I can handwrite on it, and then I can keep referring to it without switching between screens. But I do accept that I'm old, and as my children tell me repeatedly, but yeah, so it's there for you if you think you might find it useful. So we've got Adam. He's going in, but you think he hasn't gone in with an intention to commit an imprisonable offence? No?
I think I'll go off my own.
Oh, you think you're right. Which is perhaps why I said to you, have a look at your facts again. Right, so yeah, I think they've both gone in there with the intention of theft. Theft of what? Food. Okay. I want you to tell me that, right, in your application. Okay, there's entry into a building without authorisation. Okay, yes?
Can I just ask, does it make a difference that it's Adam's house as well, or does that not really?
It's Mark's house.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
Yeah, yeah. That's okay. It's all right. You're looking at facts quickly with a lot of people. But yeah, if it was Adam's house, then obviously he would have authorisation. You'd also hope that Adam wasn't quite so pissed that he'd know where the key was. But yeah, he would have authorisation, and he could also obviously authorise Patrick. Does it matter that Adam entered the building, but he didn't actually unlock the door and he didn't break the glass? So that doesn't make any difference. So he's still actually entered the building. What about if they'd used the key? What if they found the key and entered the building? Would that still be entry without authorisation? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's right. I asked the question because some classes have been confused about that. And obviously if someone's looking around your house and they find a key, if you're stupid enough to leave it under the mat and into your house, it's still burglary, right? Okay, so yes, we've got Adam and Patrick both entering the house with an intention to commit the theft of food. So we've got two principles. Okay, they're not joint principles, they've both committed the actus reus and mens rea of burglary. Two principles. Where do you go from here? What's your next step? Do you look at GBH, or do you look at something else? Shay?
Would look if there's party liability for the other two.
Yeah, good.
Undetermined.
Okay, so you now want to think, okay, can I get the other two, if I've decided they're not principal offenders, and you should have pretty quickly dismiss them as those, you want to think, can I get them under section 66(1) or 2 as secondary parties? So looking at Ben, has he done anything under section 66(1) to assist or aid, to aid and abet? Is it? No, I've got Shay shaking her head.
I was gonna say,
You're going to have to be quicker than that. Shay's already answered the question for you.
you could say that he did say yes, we'll all go together, but since he's passed out the back, you know, probably really,
We'll all get together.
yeah, when they get together, he does say it's a good idea, but that could just be said casually in the conversation, considering he was really drunk and he passed out.
Once he said it's a good idea.
To go in and get asked for pizza, but he didn't intend to do B&E, to burglary at that moment.
Yeah, so Shay?
You can't really get him on anything because the encouragement would be to go to the home to ask for pizza.
Yep.
He at no point in time encouraged or was even aware that the offence was occurring.
Yep.
Because at the point in time the offence did occur, he was lying down on the back lawn, clearly not doing anything.
Yep.
Because he didn't even move during the actual offending or anything
Yep.
from the back.
Yeah, good. Okay. So that's because, and you want to be careful with this because don't get it in your head that because this has happened that actually the initial meeting and also that sometimes that moral judgment that you bring in, you go, okay, well clearly they're up to no good. So the formulation of that, let's do something bad, happened earlier. You've got to think, when actually was the mens rea formed to actually carry out the burglary? When did the actus reus occur and when did the mens rea coincide with that? So you've got nothing from Ben in terms of aiding and abetting. The agreement to go to someone's house to see if they could get food from Mark's mum, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing unlawful in that. Jesus, my teenagers would have been charged all sorts of, well, most of their friends would be actually because they're normally at my house. But yeah, it's, there's nothing wrong in what they've done there. Okay, so there's no aiding and abetting. Certainly no intention to assist, and certainly no knowledge of the essential elements. Right? No knowledge at all that there was burglary to occur. What about under 66(2)? Did he have an agreement to become part of the common unlawful purpose? No, for the same reason. Right? At what point did the common unlawful purpose get formed? When did that happen? When did that occur? Yep.
Pretty much when they were at the house and breaking in, like it was pretty quick to do that kind of.
Yeah, pretty much at the door. Oh, there's no one here, and Patrick goes, "Oh, I know Mark well. He won't mind if we just go in." Right, that's it. Right, that's the moment that your common unlawful purpose is formed. And then when you've got one person, and then you've got Adam going, "Oh yeah, good idea." Right, or whatever it is that he says. Okay, that's your agreement, that's your common unlawful purpose, that's the time when it's formed. Okay, sorry if you can't see the board, common unlawful purpose, that's what that says. Okay, so at that point, what's Ben doing? Nothing, he's passed out on the lawn, right? So there's no agreement. You've got to actually have agreement for common unlawful purpose, in this case. Okay? So Ben's not a secondary party to the burglary. What about Chris? Yep.
At least there's like the part that I haven't seen yet.
There's every possibility.
It looks like he kind of takes quite a few steps to like recuse himself from the whole unlawful purpose. I think we can't get, Ben definitely can't get Chris.
Yeah, so Chris, again, and this is where you come back to when the common unlawful purpose is formed. What happens then? Patrick says, "Oh, I think we could just go in." Adam goes, "Oh, yeah, good idea." Chris says, "I don't think that actually actually Mark's mum would like that. They break the window, Patrick breaks the window. I'm really uncomfortable with this, okay. It's not withdrawal because he's actually never agreed to the common purpose. Okay, so a student said, well, is that withdrawal? You don't have to consider withdrawal if the person actually hasn't agreed to the common unlawful purpose. And he's done nothing here to show that he has. There's no conduct, there's no words. Yep.
What about when he runs in the house?
Okay, so you're asking, is that burglary? Yeah, okay, so it's entry. Yep. Is it authorised? Okay, has he got an intention to carry out an imprisonable offence? Why has he run in? It's a good question. It's a great question to ask.
He hears the screaming.
Yeah.
Right, so is he going in to defend or attack somebody?
Okay, what would you, if you're looking at his intention and you're trying to infer from his actions and his words what that might have been, he hears Lois scream, so, and he runs in then. Do you think he's going in to assist Patrick and Adam, or do you think he's saying, I don't think that Mark's mum's really going to like this.
He's probably helping try out Lois.
Yeah, right? So, again, you've got to put it all together and think, okay, what can we infer from his actions and his words? But you've raised a really good question. Yes, you've got entry into the building, but not with the intention to commit an imprisonable offence. And therefore, he's not guilty of burglary, and he wouldn't be, he hasn't joined a common unlawful purpose, and therefore, everything that sort of flows thereafter is not going to be something he's going to be responsible for. So what you should conclude then is that in terms of your burglary, you've got Patrick and Adam as your principals, but you have got no secondary parties with Ben and Chris. Okay, that's important because what are you going to deal with next? GBH. When you look at GBH, everyone's charged as a party. Do you need to look at every single one of them? Why not?
Because the GBH is a flow-off from the common unlawful purpose.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, you want to make it clear in looking at the GBH, because neither Ben or Chris can be seen to be a part of the common unlawful purpose of carrying out burglary. They therefore could not be secondary parties for the additional offence that occurs in the implementation of that common unlawful purpose either. So you don't, that's all, you need to cover it off, but you don't need to go through the whole scenario again and considering them. It's another reason why you would consider burglary first, so that you've been really clear about, okay, who are your principals, who are your secondary parties, what do I now need to do when I consider GBH? Right? So when you go on to then consider GBH, just before we do that, I'm going to get you to do that on your own, but I want you to obviously, let's just make sure that you know what you're doing in terms of your mens rea and your actus reus elements. So section 188, I know it was a while ago you did it with Kate. Section 188, 1 and 2. Can someone tell me what the actus reus for those sections is? It's pretty.
Wounds, maims, disfigures, possibilities
Okay, wounds, maims, disfigures, or GBH, and it's the same for 1882. Okay? Same actus reus. Right, always worth remembering that because it's just easy. Because really, once you can prove that level of harm, then you're just actually trying to figure out what is my mens rea. So what's your mens rea for 1881? Intention to do what? Okay. What is it, an intention to wound or just GBH? Really important. Students quite often go, okay, and I think my actus reus is wounding, So now I've got to consider whether the person had an intention to cause wounding. No. Your section says intention to cause GBH. That's your intention. Purpose, desire, or which certainty to cause GBH. Okay, what about your mens rea for 2? What's your mens rea?
Intent to injure or reckless disregard for safety.
Okay, intention to injure. So injure is what? Good. Where do we find that? Well done. Okay, reckless disregard for what?
The safety of others.
Good. What does reckless disregard mean? I don't know. We learned that with Kate months ago.
Consciously knowing a risk and choosing to run.
Brilliant. Okay, conscious appreciation of a risk and taking it anyway. All right, and then you've got this additional objective sort of thing of that it was unreasonable, but that's so often not really considered because it's, more often than not, it is an unreasonable risk. Okay? Subjective. Remember that. Never objective. Okay? Did the person consciously appreciate the risk that they were taking, that they would compromise the safety of others, and they took it anyway? Okay, so when you look at that, remember, you're coming down through the layers. An intention to cause really serious harm. If I can't prove that, can I prove an intention to cause actual bodily harm? If I can't prove that, then can I show that actually they had a conscious appreciation that they would compromise the safety of someone and they decided to take it? You're coming down through the layers. So what I want you to do now is I want you to work out who is your principal. That should be pretty obvious. But you're going to have to work out what is the mens rea that you think you can prove, because that will make a difference as to whether or not you can show that Adam knew as a probable consequence of carrying out this burglary. Okay, so your final element for section 66.2, did he know as a probable consequence that that level of harm with that mens rea could well happen? So deciding where you think the offending sits here makes a big difference. So I want you to have a look at that. Let's see how you go at the risk of saying 6 or 7 minutes. Can we debrief this at quarter to 2? And I mentioned this to my son recently. I mean, what does it do with 6 or 7 minutes? And he went, I can't believe you're asking that. It's so dumb. So just before quarter 2, can we talk? So we've got time to debrief it, please. Okay. Feel free to ask questions as you go.
When they come in to see you, once someone commences common law for and then they mention crime,
be, and the courts have said, you know, to be compared to possible. So could well happen as more than possible.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And does this just go into being able to argue whether or seen it as possible? And that could go either way.
Well, you could have foreseen that it was something that could well happen. If you just foreseen, if you just said that it was something that was possible, that doesn't make the threshold of could well happen. Yeah.
Could well happen. Does that mean, like, I don't know if the facts are there, if Adam knew that he was carrying a knife?
Well, it's not clear. Okay, let's ensure we've got plenty of time to have a look at this. So, all right, what did we decide? What did you decide in terms of Patrick for the actus reus? What's your actus reus here? Is it GBH? Is it wounding? Is it maiming? Is it disfiguring? It's not enough to just say actus reus satisfied. No. Yep.
Some of the facts say he's already like GBH, so don't you not have to argue if it's like wounding or maybe?
Sorry.
Like the facts where he said that he was convicted of like GBH, so don't you have to not say again if it's wounding or maybe?
Did I say he's been convicted?
Like that's like the crime that he's been charged with.
Yeah, if you're charged with something, it doesn't make you convicted of it.
Oh, like he's charged with GBH, so I thought you don't have to argue if it's like GBH or wounding.
Oh, well, you're charged with 188, right? So if you're charged with 188, it could be wounding, GBH, maiming, or disfiguring. When they talk about 188, they usually say wounding with intent, because that's actually the title of the section. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're only charged with wounding. But what is the level of harm that you think is actually caused here? Yep.
I would say wounding.
Wounding? Okay, so because,
Well, grievous bodily harm is like direct threat to your license. So I think in this sense, wounding is being stabbed to the stomach.
well, grievous bodily harm is really serious harm. You don't think this is really serious harm? Yep.
I think a ruptured spleen probably would fall under grievous bodily harm because it can feel pretty serious.
Yeah, I would say a ruptured spleen would be GBH. Yeah, I think it falls under GBH. I mean, if somebody stabbed me and ruptured my spleen, I wouldn't go to the pharmacy and go get plaster for that. Yeah, but if you weren't sure and you went with wounding, that would be okay, as long as you actually establish the actus reus. But when you talk about wounding, make sure we're talking about the breaking of the skin and the flow of blood, when you name your cases, Waters and I can't remember what the other one is off the top of my head. But so what's your mens rea? What have you decided on mens rea? Is there an intention to cause GBH? Is there an intention to cause really serious harm?
Not clear on the facts whether he intended it or not. We know that he's been expelled for possession and having a knife before, but not for actually doing the knife. So we don't know if he's a violent person. But I think you could definitely get him on reckless disregard for the safety of others. Like stabbing someone in the stomach and expecting nothing bad to happen is pretty idiotic. So.
Okay, so okay, I've got someone else with their shade.
I would mostly agree that, like, when it comes to stabbing someone, you're almost always going to have something grievous bodily harm. Because if you think about it as having such a, like, intense level of harm, it's not like I'm punching you in the face. Like, this is a whole different private ballgame. And he intentionally went at her with the knife. So I
test? Is it subjective or objective?
Subjective.
Subjective. So are you applying an objective test or?
I mean, yeah, but like,
I mean, but yeah, oh no. Okay, well not necessarily. I asked the question because I want you to think about it, but not necessarily.
Like, to build on that though, I think even though it is a subjective test, is it not going to be relevant to the jury's inquiry that like, well, you know, he had a knife, he stabbed with a knife. Usually that would point towards someone intending to cause GBH. It's like ultimately, you kind of have to make inferences, don't you? Because it's not like someone writes out in advance that like, I am intending to cause GBH, and that would be evidence that points towards an inference.
Good, well done. Okay, so you can infer from someone's actions, and this is why I haven't given you many words around this, because I want you to think about it. Right? Sorry, I don't remember the name. Maria. If I walked up to Maria, right, and I just stepped up and I smacked her really hard in the face and I broke her nose, what is the inference you are going to draw from my actions? You're going to infer that I intended to do that? If I break her nose, are you going to infer that I've used quite a bit of force? Okay, so in the absence of me tripping and doing that, you can infer what my intentions are from my actions. It doesn't matter that I didn't say anything. Right? Does it take a fair bit of force to actually drive a knife through someone's stomach and rupture a spleen? Yeah. Okay, so there's a fair bit of force used, and if you didn't know that, then think about if you tried to pierce the skin of a pig, or if you're doing a roast lamb or whatever it is. It does require force. Okay, so even at the very least, if you couldn't decide whether or not you could show an intention to cause GBH, and that was his purpose or desire, at the very least, I would expect you to go with intention to injure. If you went with reckless disregard, well, yes, you're going to be able to establish that. But I'm going, oh, that's a little bit of a, it's an easy out, right? So don't necessarily take the easy out. I still want to see that you can actually infer from actions what someone's intention is. What I don't want to see from you are words like he ought to have known, should have known, everyone knows if you do that, because that's using words that show an objective test. You're using an objective approach. Okay, if you do that, then I'm going, okay, this person doesn't understand what subjective means, right? So be very careful in the way that you word it. Right, so at the very least, I probably would have gone for, let's say we ended up with 1882, that there was an intention to injure. So Adam, right, let's assume that Adam, in the interest of time, we're not looking at aiding and abetting. Adam says to him, what the hell did you do that for? What the hell are you doing? So really what you're looking at there is section 66.2. Now, did this violent offending happen in pursuance of the common unlawful purpose of burglary? Yeah, yes? Oh, okay, I've got some puzzle faces. So,
I've always said that to be able to escape is needed the way out, so by assaulting Lois, they were able to secure the exit and finish the burglary, essentially.
yeah, so think about the Timoni case. And think about, in that case they were saying, well, the robbery happened, but in terms of thinking about what happened in terms of the bank robbery and what was going to be the common unlawful purpose and the implementation of that, it's not just taking the money in the bank, it's getting into the bank, it's doing all the things, taking hostages that might happen. It might be getting confronted by someone as you come out of the bank. All of that is in the implementation of the common unlawful purpose. Okay. And so, which is obviously wider than when you're thinking about section 66.1 in Larkinson Police. All right? It's not something that is so out there in comparison to the burglary. It's not where someone's gone, oh, okay, actually, Mark's mum makes shit pizza, I'm going to set fire to the house. Okay, now that would be something you would go, that's not an implementation of the common unlawful purpose, that's way out there. Okay? So I would have said, yes, it is in pursuance of the implementation of the common unlawful purpose. Yeah.
So is it kind of just like a reasonable foreseeability test then, where it's like it's reasonably foreseeable?
No, the courts don't even describe it as being like that. It's not actually, did this happen whilst you were carrying out what you intended to do? Right? determination on this. So they're thinking, well, did that happen whilst you were carrying out the burglary? I mean, so if you're carrying out a burglary and someone comes upon you while you're doing that, then what are you going to do? You're either going to run out or you're going to confront them, and in this case. But the other thing is, so what did he do? He actually stabbed her after what? What happened? After she hit Chris. Okay, so is that relevant? Yeah? Okay, so would you argue self-defense for him? Okay, do you think you'd succeed? And if not, why not? Maybe. Okay, that's fair enough. One of the problems that arises out of this is that if you argue self-defense for him, right, is she acting in self-defense? Okay, so she's come out into her kitchen, there's a couple of guys there, somebody runs in, she's thinking, oh, I'm going to be attacked. She acts in self-defense. If you actually start an altercation and the person acts in self-defense against you, you can't then go, I'm now acting in self-defense against you because you started it, okay? So it's a good thing to have thought about, but you start getting into issues around, well, actually you've started the altercation. Are you really acting in defence of yourself or someone else, or are you actually just continuing a fight that you started? Do you know what I mean? So what you've got to think about then is, does he foresee as a probable consequence of carrying out the burglary that offence would occur in terms of that level of harm with that mens rea? Okay.
I don't think Adam could have foreseen that because Patrick said he's friends with Mark. I think there's no world in which I would expect like a friend to stab another friend's mum. Like, pretty far-fetched, especially as they just want to do simple things. I think there's no way, especially based on his response. Like, his instant response was, what the hell are you doing?
Yep.
Like, not responding to Chris getting slapped with a baseball bat. It was his friend Patrick stabbing mum.
Okay. Anyone got any other views on that? So?
Considering that people know that Patrick has possession of a knife, and they was expelled from school for that, I think it's reasonable to assume that in an altercation, he might use force considering he has been known to carry a weapon around. So him using that weapon might not be beyond.
Okay. Have you got a drink bottle in your bag?
Yes, I mean.
Okay. Did you have, if I see you in a year's time, should I just assume that you'll have a drink bottle in your bag?
I always carry one of them.
Okay. Do you have gym gear in your bag? No? Okay.
I get your point.
Yeah. Right, you can't just, because someone did something bad a year ago, you can't just assume that they actually have, they're going to have a knife on them now, right?
Yeah, and it was also done for possession, not for using the knife.
Yeah.
It's something to say.
Yeah. With an intention to actually injure someone, right, with that level of harm. Okay? So I think you'd be hard pushed to show that he knew it was something that could well happen in the implementation of a burglary. The only thing that none of you have raised is the intoxication thing. Just remember that a drunken intent is still an intent. Right. Okay, right, sorry, I'm not done very well on time today. How unusual. That's it for me. You've got Kate, assuming there's no delays in her flights. So she'll be with you doing revision on Tuesday. I will be doing plenty of office hours in the coming weeks, but thank you. You've been a pleasure to teach. And hopefully I don't see any of you next year. And good luck for your exam.
Thank you.
Welcome.